Hey guys, and welcome back to yet another Monday critique. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I'm having a wonderful day. So if this is your first time here, welcome. We do this show every Monday live, and it's an interactive session. So if you're joining us live, I hope to see you guys in the comment section of this video. The goal of this basic show is basically to critique two images that get submitted by creators within our Facebook group. And I'm going to show you guys exactly how you guys can submit your images to be critiqued if you wanted it to be critiqued right now. So let me switch over to my desktop and I'll show you guys how to submit your images. And after I do that, I'll talk about how I critique the images, and we're going to talk about our very first guest that we have. So let's do that really quick. So desktop, transition. All right, so here we are on my desktop. Now, currently, right now, the only way to submit images is via the Facebook group. We are working on another way to submit. That's in the future, but right now we're working on the only way you can do it is via Facebook. So if you go to Facebook and you do a search for fine art photography and modeling, you will be able to find this specific group on Facebook. Or you could go into your URL and just type in this URL here, and you'll be able to find the group as well. Once you find the group, if you're not currently a member of the group, you will have to request to join the group. Now, when you request to join the group, there's 3 questions that you're prompted with. Now, if you don't answer those 3 questions, well, you're not gonna get let into the group. So answer the 3 questions. It's photography specific. So answer the questions and you get straight into the group. Once you're let into the group, there's a specific pinned post at the very top of the group, this post right here. And in that post, if you go into the comment section of that post, you could then submit your image right here. Just put some basic information about how you capture that image and some basic background about the circumstances around that image, just to help with the context of how you created that image. It will be helpful. So once you submit it, basically the images are critiqued in the order it was submitted. So tonight, what we're going to be doing is critiquing 2 specific images that were submitted by one of the members of this group. And the way I critique these images, I look at 4 specific things: lighting, posing, composition, and then post-production. So those are the 4 areas that I look at when I critique these images. So as I critique these images, please guys, put comments down in the comment section and just let us know, if you have any different views on the particular images. It doesn't have to be right or wrong, it just starts a conversation. So don't be afraid to put comments in there and we'll, have a great conversation. So like I said, today we have our very first guest. If you guys are part of the group, the Fine Art Photography and Modeling group, you will recognize his name because he does put a lot of feedback in the group. So his name is Anthony, and I'll let him, say a couple of words about himself, and I will jump straight into editing the images. So Anthony.
What's up, guys? Anthony here. I am a portrait photographer in Columbus. I actually do it part-time. I have a full-time job too. I am not a famous YouTuber, so hopefully you are not disappointed by the first guest, but I am very happy to be here with Ernesto to critique a couple of images.
Thank you for joining us, Anthony. So Anthony is going to follow us along and he's going to give us feedback. So let's begin. All right, so let's look at the very first image. So this image was submitted by Mario Fernando. So Mario, thank you very much for submitting your image. I sincerely appreciate it. So when Mario submitted this image, he provided some basic information about the image. So what he submitted was he captured this image with a Canon Rebel XT, is that XTI? I think it's XTI. 50 millimeter lens at f 1.8, and the shutter was 1/150th of a second. Sorry guys, using natural light, and he did his post-production in Photoshop, it looks like. So I'm gonna switch to Photoshop just so that you guys could see this image in full, because I realize on the live stream sometimes you can't see it in full. So hopefully by going to Photoshop you'll be able to see it. So I'm just gonna wait to make sure that, yeah, okay, so that should work better. Okay, so let's start out with light. So the title of this particular live stream is how to handle Dapple lighting. Now, when I looked at this particular image, that's the immediate thought that came to mind. So in the environment that that Mario captured this image, and he looks like it was captured where they had like a lot of leaves and the light was coming through the leaves. And, you know, that's basically the definition of Dapple lighting, where you have like these different spots of light that's coming through. You know, it could be leaves or it could be anything that's just different lighting patterns, right? So it's very tricky sometimes when you have to deal with these different lighting patterns, because you have to, well, you have to find that little spot where the light is coming through very nicely, right? So when I look at this image, what I see is that light that that you would basically want to capture on the subject's face wasn't isolated on the subject's face specifically. It was isolated around her lips and around her nose, right? And everything else went to, you know, in the shadows basically. Now, if, you know, Mario's goal was to basically highlight the subject's lips and, you know, nose, then obviously he did his job. But I doubt whether that was the goal of this particular photo shoot, to highlight those two things. Because if it was, it would have been a much more tighter shot. So the way I would go about handling Dapple lighting in this particular case would be to, first of all, find the light, you know, that would be falling on the subject's face much more appropriate than it is right now. So, and it looks like it was some harsh lighting outside as well. But I would first find the light that's falling on the subject's face properly first. That's the first way I would deal with this. The second way is basically to have a reflector. Like I think they have like these, what is it, 7-in-1, 5-in-1 reflectors. And I would just use the diffuser part of the reflector to help diffuse that Dapple lighting that will be coming through. And that will reduce the amount of those different spotlights is going to be coming on the subjects, and it just diffuses the light and make the light a lot softer and get rid of, you know, basically the Dapple lighting situation. So that's what I would use. The other thing that you could probably do is also probably use a flash to help with this situation. Like if there was no way that you could, one, get the subject away from the Dapple lighting, two, use a diffuser, then a flash would certainly help in this situation as well, because you could definitely use the flash to help balance out the difference between the highlights and the shadows. So you could have exposed for the highlights, in this case the highlights that's on the subject's lips and her nose, and then you could use your flash to help fill in the shadows on the subject's face, and then it would nicely balance out the image so you don't have this disparity between the highlights and the shadows, right? So that's how I would handle this particular situation. Now, if you didn't do any of that, which in this case you didn't, you know, in post you could try to recover some of that shadow that was, you know, some of the shadows, bring up some of the shadows in post. Now, unfortunately, it looks like on the lips and the nose, you overexposed that a little bit. So it's kind of hard to recover it, especially since I have a JPEG file. It was a little bit tough for me. So one of the things that I did in this particular for this particular image is I try to bring up the shadows on the subject's face. Now, it's not a great job, but it's better than where we started, okay? And I think if you would have found that particular light on that day, to basically isolate the subject's face properly, I think it would have a better, it would have come out much better than where we are right now. And I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say about the lighting on the subject's face in this particular image. Guys, if you have any particular feedback that you want to provide about the lighting in this particular image, drop those comments down below. But Anthony, what do you think? Do you agree or disagree with what I just said about the lighting?
I do agree with everything you said. That's the exact same things that I looked at. I'm a fan of creative portraits, so things like dappled lighting and harsh lighting, that sort of thing. I am a big fan of those when you do them intentionally. So in this image, it seems like there was a little bit of intention there, but I think the way that the light did fall beneath the eyes doesn't quite seem intentional. It seems like she just kind of posed and he took the shot. So yeah, that's a bit distracting for me because, like you said, I don't think his intent was for us to focus on her nose and her mouth. We really wanted that on the eyes. So I think depending upon the angle of the light, if he just would have moved her forward a little bit, that might have brought the level of that light up, and then it could have been on the eyes, just depending upon the angle. If it was coming in at an angle, just moving her up slightly would have moved that light up, and then her eyes would have been lit, and I think it would have worked out much better. But I never discourage using dappled light. You just have to really know before you take the picture, what are you wanting the viewer to focus on, and then make sure that your lighting matches wherever you want the viewer to go. Otherwise, it just kind of seems unintentional, and that's just not what I would like to go for in a portrait.
Yeah, that's a good point about the moving forward. I didn't think about that, but yeah, she could have moved forward as well, and that could have definitely corrected that problem as well. So, great point. Guys, again, if you want to join this conversation, drop your comments down below, and we'll have a conversation about not only lighting but everything else. So moving on, so let's talk about the pose in this particular image. So from a posing perspective, I kind of like the way she has her head positioned, and I like the expression on her face. I love the fact that she has a great connection with the camera. Her eyes, I love the way she's connecting with the camera. And the fact that she have a head position the way that it is, it creates a nice, it defines that cheekbones, which is kind of adds like that depth and dimension to the images that I like. So I kind of like that. The only thing that I wish that we could get rid of from a posing perspective in this particular image would be her hands. So our hands that's on her neck right here just seems to be a little bit distracting. Now, if it was softer hands, like if the hands, her fingers were, a little bit more softer, it would have been less distracting. It wouldn't have drawn so much attention. So my suggestion here would have been to get rid of our hands altogether, like drop it or hide it, and just have the attention focused on her face, isolate her face, come in a little bit close and isolate her face. The other thing that's a little bit distracting to me is her bra strap, right? So again, getting in closer would help isolate and not have my attention going to her bra strap or her hands. But overall, I think I like the pose. I like her face. I like the way she's connecting. I really like the expression, because posing is not just about moving body parts and stuff like that. It's all about getting that great expression from your subject. So I kind of like that. So I think you did a great job with that. I think both you and your subject, I think you did an awesome job with that connection. So Anthony, what do you think?
Again, I agree with what you're saying. I do really like the pose. It just feels very natural and it does draw me in. Of course, anyone that has seen any of the critiques or comments that I post, I'm not a huge fan, and this might be a little bit more composition than pose, but I'm not a huge fan of the eyes being pushed all the way to the corner. So that kind of bothers me a little bit. So, I would have if I were taking this shot, I would have moved to the left just a little bit so that way she wasn't having to push those eyes all the way to the corner. It just makes the eyes feel strained when they're that far to the left or to the right. So I would have changed that. But all in all, I am a huge fan of the pose, and I agree with the hand as well. The bra strap, I noticed that when I was looking at the image, but it didn't bother me really. So, that's just kind of a personal thing. I think it didn't really draw my attention that much. And I mean, I guess I just figured the position that they're in is just kind of inevitable that, with the top that she has on, you're going to see it. So it didn't really bother me as much, but I could definitely see where that is a bit distracting though.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of little elements in a shot that can actually make or break a shot. And when you're trying to refine a shot to make it like something, well, let me put it this way. Every single shot that I try to take, I try to make it like timeless and not as distracting, right? Do I accomplish that every time? Probably not, but I try, right? So when I see little distractions like this, it basically makes the image for me a little bit, it makes the image fall apart a little bit for me. Same thing when I'm looking at my images and I see little imperfections here and there. It just irks me, that when I see it, I was like, man, why didn't I see that in camera before I actually took that image? One of the things that helped me out a lot with that is working with other designers, like working with, wardrobe stylists, like my wife, when she was doing the wardrobe styling for us on photo shoots and stuff like that, she really, reinforced in my head, look at these finer details before you actually take the shot. Like if the clothes is falling in the wrong way, try to fix it, before you take the shot. And then here's hairstylists, like I was working with Andrea. I remember the very first time I was working with Andrea, it was on a pinup shoot, I believe. And on that pinup shoot, she saw like just a little bit of the subject's hair was in the wrong place. It was just a little strand of hair that was just in the wrong place. And she's like, wait a minute, wait, Ernesto, let me just fix this before. I was like, what are you talking about? Fix what? I didn't see it. But, the fact that working with these professionals, they just, tune your eyes to look for these, these little imperfections that, just helps fine tune your images a little bit. So that's what that's when I look at this image, that's why it draws my attention. It's just these little finer things. Mm-hmm. Let's see what the people have to say with respect to these comments that's coming in. Let's see. So Notification Gang, EW Images, welcome. James is saying, has the show started yet? It has. Welcome. What's up, man? Thank you for doing this. Jerome is saying, well, thank you, Jerome, for joining us. So James, I hope you got the answer to your question. The guest is Anthony. So behind the focus, D Jackson is saying, would it be better to light the face and let the Dapple light go natural everywhere else? You could actually use flash and actually do that. So you can if you wanted to. Jerome is saying, so do you guys think he should toss the image? In this particular case, I would say if he has a different image, I would say with better lighting on the subject's face, I would say go with the other image as opposed to this. But tossing it completely, if this was his intent, then no, I don't think you should toss it. What do you think, Anthony? You think you should toss it?
Yeah, I absolutely do not think that he should toss it. I don't think it's a bad image. I think it just doesn't put the focus where he likely intended it to be. So, yeah, I agree with you. If he had other images in the set that were lit a little better, then I would go with that one if I was, going to deliver to a client or, post or whatever. But this could also work as well. I mean, the thing I always try to remember is, as photographers, we are looking at things with a much, much, much finer eye than the client or the subject, whoever is receiving the image. So I always try to find a balance between, being hard on myself and saying, oh, this isn't right. This isn't right. How did I miss this? And, saying, OK, what is the client going to be happy with? I always try to make sure I get everything right. But I would imagine the subject or whoever probably got this image and probably loved it and didn't even think like, oh, I wish the light would have been on my eyes instead of my lips. They probably didn't care. So, yes, things like this, I wouldn't say toss it at all. I think the only images that I normally toss would be the image is out of focus. I misfocus or, I just messed up so bad that there's just no way I could even salvage it in post. But something like this, I would absolutely keep it. And who knows when this could be a useful image.
Yeah, I saw, I can't remember where I saw it or heard it. I think I heard it somewhere today. Along the same lines about what you were talking about, the client not caring so much about these particulars about, it was about lenses. If you shot it at like 1.2 or 2.4 or whatever f-stop you choose to shoot it at, most clients wouldn't even care, as long as, they look good and they're, in their eyes, they look good. They will be happy with the image regardless of, what lens you shot it with or how you compose it and all that good stuff. But I totally agree there.
And one other thing on that, Ernesto, the thing too is I always say don't let that allow you to get lazy, because I think some people will say, oh, the client's not going to care, they won't notice anyway. So then you start getting lax on, your technique and how you're shooting. And it's like that should never be an excuse to miss things because you just were being lazy. It's just if you shot it and a lot of the other elements are good and you've got this one thing that you just missed when you were taking that shot, then, that's okay to overlook that and you can still deliver to the client. But I always try to get it 100%. Aim for 100%. And if you only hit 90, that's okay.
Good point. James is saying, what about darkening some of the highlights in the background, like the white columns? You could, but I don't think that's particularly the bigger problem with this particular image per se. Then behind the focus is saying, I would like more body in the pose, the crop halfway through her bust. I think that's more subjective. I think that would be more up to the image creator as to how he wants to compose it or what message he was trying to project. With this particular image, if the focus was on the subject's face, then obviously putting more body into it is not going to be helpful, right? I think his intent was just to capture her face, not necessarily her body. At least that's my thought on that one. So Jerome is saying, I agree with the crop. I would crop. All right, there's a lot of comments coming through here. So I'm gonna continue here because there's another image that we need to review. So we'll come back to the comments. Maybe we'll come back to that, but keep dropping those comments in there and we'll definitely come back to it and go through it. I really enjoy you guys putting those comments, so that's awesome. All right, so let's move on to the next thing here, which is composition. So from a compositional perspective, like I was saying previously about, I think the intent here is the focus is the head, her face. So I think a tighter crop on her face would definitely help sell this image a lot better. Now I tried playing around with the crop and stuff on this particular image, And I don't think I like any of the crops that I was playing around with, but I'll try one here and see if this comes together. But yeah, I think just a tighter crop would have helped with this particular image as opposed to what we have now. So let's see if that works. I think that kind of works. I know you're gonna get a delayed feed, Anthony, so I don't know if you'll see it yet, but I think this tighter composition works a little bit better. And then I think if we darken the background here, also would help with that. But yeah, I think that's it. I think from a compositional perspective, just a tighter crop would have helped with this image. So Anthony, I'm not sure if you see my crop yet, but
yeah, I see it. I see it.
So yeah, this is my thought on this. What is your let me expand it. Let me undo it so that you could give your thoughts.
So I actually was thinking a little different. I would have liked to have seen this be her not so much centered. She's not exactly centered. I would have liked to have seen her to the right and we kind of bring in the rule of thirds. Now, I am absolutely not a proponent for always shooting rule of thirds, or, you know, a lot of the rules that we have, I use them, but I don't feel like every image has to have, you know, every rule in the image and to the T. But in this particular one, I would have liked to have seen it more in a rule of thirds with her to the right. I think if we were going to keep, you know, that crop, I just think that would have been stronger. It just would have looked a little more pleasing to me. But, you know, yeah, something like that. I think that just kind of either that or going with even, going to a vertical, a portrait crop of some sort, I think could also work. You know, I kind of like the bokeh. I like the background. It probably could be brought down exposure wise, you know, maybe a third of a stop or something like that. But I do personally like the background. So I wouldn't want to get rid of a ton of it because I think it adds just a little bit of texture to the image. So I like it. I just would like to see her just kind of offset a little bit more.
Yeah, actually, I think I like oops, what did I do there? I think I like oops, cancel that. I like the crop to the right. I think I agree with you on that one. It looks better, that crop to the right. But I would come in here, maybe get rid of that gap in her head. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think that works out better. So as far as so we're gonna move on here to the post-production. So as far as the post-production is concerned, the only thing I would do here, I like the skin on your subject here, but just with the things that we talked about with respect to lighting and stuff like that, I would, you know, try to see if you could correct it as much as you can. I mean, I tried here by, you know, bumping up some of the shadows on the subject's face to help correct it. But I guess if you have access to the raw file, which you should, and if you shot this in raw, you should be able to recover some of that highlights on the subject's lips and her nose, and, you know, bring up the shadows on her face, and you should be able to balance out this image a lot better than what I try to do here, because I only had the JPEG image. So try that, see if that works. But I think from as far as the post-production is concerned, I don't think I would. Oh, and the highlights here on her shoulder, you know, try to recover some of that in post. And yeah, I think that would work. So what do you think, Anthony?
I agree with you on that one. I really don't have anything to add. I agree with you said. And yeah, otherwise I like how he edited it.
Yeah. All right, so let's just jump in here to the comments and see what people have to say. And then we'll move on to the second image. So wouldn't add the flash about the shadows areas fixed I think I covered that. So he's having a conversation with Steve, James, blah, blah, blah. Just reading through here. So James is saying, just cut the tree down the middle. I like her here. All right, James. Good one. All right, so let's move on here to the next image. So this is image number 2. So this image was submitted by Valerie. So Valerie shot this with a Canon Rebel. It seems like it's all Canon tonight.
That's right. They knew I was going to be on the
show. She used a 55 millimeter all natural light. She utilized what is this, 400 or 800 ISO? I guess she wasn't really sure which one she used. So I guess she's given a range here, 400 or 800 ISO, and then the f-stop was 5.6. So that was her settings. All right, so let's go to Photoshop, because I think when I do this, I get rid of all this. Okay, so let's start out with light in this particular image. So Valerie used natural light in this particular image. Now, I don't have any issues with using natural light. I love using natural light, but there's also, whenever you use a natural light, you also have an issue of trying to control that natural light and control it in the sense of how it falls on your subject. In this particular case, the light that's falling on the subject is pretty flat lighting that's falling on the subject. And you have a problem where the light is also falling on the background, is highlighting that background, and is making those wrinkles on your background even more pronounced, right? So in working with natural light, I would try to, get some type of modifiers or something just to try to help shape that light so it could fall on your subject and adds a little bit more contour to, the subject's face, so that the image is not so flat. So if I was taking this particular shot, what I would have done is with the subject, the first subject here, I would have probably tried to have her tilt her head a little bit more to camera left, so that on her, her right cheek here, she would have a little bit more shadows on her face, and that would add a little bit more contouring and add a little bit more depth and dimension into this image. As far as the subject on the floor, laying down, maybe turning her face a little bit to camera would add that little depth and dimension on her left cheek. And that would have made the shot a little bit more, that would have give both the subjects a little bit more depth and dimension. And as far as the light falling on the background, the only thing I could think of doing there is moving them away or moving away the background, because if you can't control all of the light in the area with some kind of modifier, then there's no way that you could control that light in the background. You could probably try to drop your exposure on your camera, but dropping your exposure on your camera to affect that background would also affect your subject. So yeah, so I would probably get rid of it or change your location. Unfortunately, with shooting with natural light, you are at the mercy of wherever the light is, wherever the good quality of light is. So I would just try to change up the subject, change up the background, do something to get rid of that distraction in the background. So that's my thoughts there with respect to the lighting. But overall, I think for as far as the lighting is concerned, I think you obviously lit them pretty well. But I just think you could just add a little bit more depth and dimension to the image. And that's it. So Anthony, what do you think?
So I know you are a huge fan of not having flat lighting. I personally don't mind flat lighting sometimes in some images, but I do think in this image, I'm not a huge fan of the lighting. One thing when I shoot natural light is what they also could have done to kind of add to your suggestions. I'm assuming that this was either like in their house or in the studio or wherever it was, where they have positioned that backdrop and how they have the model situated. They also could physically adjust them. So, let's say if they had, the window was coming straight from the right, they could have rotated the whole scene a little bit more to the left or to the right. They could have adjusted the position of everything to have the light hit them differently so that it wasn't as flat. So they could have had the same exact pose, the same exact setup, but just rotating everything would change the direction of the light, and then changing the direction of that light could, cause the light to not be as flat, and they can get some shadows and some different highlights in there. And then also for the background, this might be a little more technical than what they were going for when they did this, but they could also flag it. They could use, even if they had a reflector, they could have put something up that would block the light from hitting that background so that it wasn't as lit. And, generally for me, I try to keep the background not overly lit, so that way the exposure on the background isn't the same as the exposure on the subject, especially if, I was a little lazy and I had some wrinkles in my backdrop and didn't feel like, ironing those out. You don't really want to highlight that. No, they are kind of highlighted in this. So I would just recommend that they try to reposition everything to change the direction of that light. And hopefully that could yield some depth and dimension as you love. And I think that would have made it a little bit stronger.
Agreed. I wish I don't know if Valerie is tuning in, but if she is, I wish she would, drop some comments in there. Let us know where exactly these people were, if they were in position in front of some window or something like you suggested. Because if it was, then yeah, exactly. That would have worked too. All right, so let's move on to the pose in this particular setup here. So as I stated before, posing is not just about, moving body parts, face and stuff like that. It's also about trying to create some type of an expression connection with the viewers, right? So when I'm looking at this particular image, I'm not only looking at the body parts and stuff like that, I'm looking at trying to figure out, what kind of message is it that that they are trying to tell us in this particular image. And the first thing that distracts me in this particular image when I look at it, just looking at purely the body parts, right, is this hand or fingers that's poking out of the other subject's neck. That's a little bit distracting to me. The hands that's protruding out of this subject here is just a little bit distracted to me. So getting rid of just those two things for me would help increase the connection just a little bit more with these two subjects. The other thing that's a little bit distracting to me is, how this subject is looking at the other subject. To me, this doesn't have like a strong connection to me. This just feels like she is just staring up at, pretty much like up this subject's nose or something when I look at it. It doesn't do much. I'm trying to explain it properly, but for me, it just kind of loses that connection. And I think going back to what I was saying with respect to the lighting on this subject here, if she had just looked away from the subject, and then maybe not closing our eyes, but looking down or something like that, just looking a little bit more like, a little bit more subdued, because the first subject is just a little bit stronger. She has like a stronger connection to the camera. So therefore, I'm thinking like she's the more, should be like the more aggressive part, and then the other one should be a little bit more submissive, I think, when I look at this particular image. So yeah, I don't have an issue with this subject here, the one that's actually looking at the camera. I think her connection to the camera is pretty strong, and I like that. The one that's lying down is where I have the particular issue. I just feel like her looking at the subject the way she is, it just feels like stalkerish. I don't know if that's the word. But yeah, it just doesn't feel like she's connecting properly to the subject. So yeah. Anthony, what do you think?
Okay, so first, let me say, me and Ernesto did not discuss critique or anything. So we're not all saying the same thing because we talked about it beforehand. We just legitimately are agreeing. And when I saw this image, and I kind of had already briefed at the comments, so some of the people, they may not agree with this, but I felt the exact same way. When I look at this image, it made me feel like I interrupted an intimate moment. So, I felt like they were together, and then it's like I walked in the room and she's the subject that's looking at the camera, kind of is looking at me like, why are you here? Like, you're interrupting our time, like we were sharing a moment. So it just makes me feel like I violated their moment. I know that sounds kind of extreme, but that's what I feel when I look at that image. It just doesn't, I feel very disconnected from it. So I would have liked to have seen the subject that's laying down, had she been looking at the camera as well, then I would have just felt like, they were, kind of there sharing a moment, but also looking at me. So it just kind of brings me in and makes me feel a little bit more comfortable with the image as a whole. So I agree with you completely. I think there's just not the connect there that I think could have been had they either had the subject laying down look at us, or had they had the subject that's looking at us looking down at the other subject. I think both their eyes needed to be in the same spot for it to work for me. So it's just like, it's close. Just making an adjustment could have really made it work for me, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to the composition in this particular image. So from a compositional perspective, I don't think I have anything to say with respect to the composition. I was thinking that maybe cropping it a little bit so we don't have so much room in the back, maybe. Let's see here. I don't know if that will work. I'm just trying something here. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Right now, I'm not really feeling that. But yeah, overall, I think the composition is fine. So I'll just leave it the way it is. What are your thoughts, Anthony?
Yeah, if I could change anything, I actually would have just brought the camera down a little bit so I could have got the ears of the subject laying down. I don't need as much hair on the top. Just having the ears there, without them, because the frame is cut off literally right at the point where the ears are getting ready to start. I would have rather have seen her ears. So just kind of would have made the side of that face feel a little bit more complete than having more headroom. So I just would have brought the camera down just a little bit to include the ears in there.
Okay. All right. So moving on to post-production in this particular image. So here's where I think the image could actually use a little bit more, post-production to help where the natural lighting, pretty much, I guess, interrupted the flow of this particular image. So the couple of things that I think that's needed in this image from a post-production perspective is a little bit of contrast and a little bit of color work, and perhaps a little bit more dodging and burning. And basically getting rid of the wrinkles behind the subject on the background and darkening the background just a little bit. I think overall, if you made those simple adjustments to this particular image, I think it would be a very, very great image. I just think those simple adjustments would help. And I think I try to do some of that. Yeah, I darkened this image just a little bit. I didn't get rid of anything in the background. And then I try to add just a little bit of color work to it. And those are the simple adjustments that I made to this particular image from a post-production perspective. But I gather you could actually do a lot more to this image if you just play around with it a little bit more in post. But yeah, just add a little bit of contrast, get rid of those wrinkles in the background, add a little bit of color work in this image, and I think I think it will be great. So, Anthony?
Yet again, I am agreeing with the man. Yeah, I know. I completely agree. And I think something that people should really spend time perfecting their craft is dodging and burning. That is something, when you do it correctly, it really can make an image stand out and be something great. So in the case with this one, where the lighting is a little bit flat, if you just went in and took a little time, and, it does take time. So that's why I always stress, try to get it right in camera, so you save yourself the post time. But if you go in and you dodge and burn this well, I mean, you can really increase that and make it to where the lighting doesn't seem as flat. And, you just have to follow. The key is to know where your light is coming from so that your highlights and your shadows are appropriate for the direction of the light. You certainly wouldn't want a shadow where there would be a highlight or vice versa. But I think, you definitely can make this pop more by adding the contrast, like you said, and doing some dodging and burning just to give a little bit more depth to the face. I think it could turn out to be a lot really nice.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so those are the 2 images that we wanted to review tonight. Now we're gonna jump into the comments to see what you guys have to say. But before I do that, I just want to, remind you guys where you could submit your images to be critiqued once again. So if you're joining the show now or you're watching the rebroadcast, once again, if you guys wanted to submit your images to be critiqued, please go to Facebook, because currently that's the only place that you could actually submit your images for critique. If you go there, there's a group on Facebook. It's called Fine Art Photography and Modeling. And in that group, you could basically request. Well, first of all, if you're not a member of the group, you have to request, first of all, to join the group. Now, once you request to join the group, there's 3 questions that you get prompted with. And if you don't answer those 3 questions, you automatically don't come in. But if you answer those 3 questions, you will get let into the group. They're all photography related, so just answer the 3 questions and you'll be able to come in. Once you are in, there's a specific pin post at the very top of the group. And this is the pin post. And if you go to that pin post and you go to the comment section of that pin post, you could just simply upload your image, put a little bit of information about your image, how you took it, the settings around that particular image, and basically add a little bit of context, like, what was the situation when you took that image, because that will be helpful when we're critiquing it. So that is how you guys could submit your images. So with that said, we're going to jump into the comments and see what you guys have to say, have a little bit of a conversation, and then after that, we wrap it up. So let me switch up the cameras here so that it could switch to us. All right, so now let's jump into the comments here. So we have, let me scroll up here. So Martin is saying, Anthony, I like your crop on that image. So the crop of, I'm guessing is the first image with the spot, with the Dapple light, and I'm guessing that's the one that Martin is referring to. So yeah, I think that was a great crop on that particular image. So James is saying, add head back. I don't know what you mean by that, James, but okay. And then James is saying, boo for Canon. And he's laughing. Well, I guess you're booing my camera too, James.
Right. It's all good. Shoot with whatever you have. Whatever you got to shoot with it.
That is true. It works. It all works. It all takes pictures, right?
Yep.
So Steven is saying, I think if you turn the head of the girl laying on the floor, you would lose the connection she's making by looking at the other girl and change the feeling of the image. So my thought process on that is, first of all, I'm trying to get the lighting right. So moving her head away from her and a little bit towards the camera would add that depth and dimension to the image, what I kind of like. And then it would kind of fix that problem that I saw in the particular image, which is the connection. I don't think they have that connection right now. I think that connection is kind of broken. So I think that's one thing there. Actually, hang on. I think I switched to the wrong screen here. So I think I wanted to switch to this one where it has the comments. Yeah, so that one would be better. So what else here? Let's see here. So behind the focus is saying, very intimate at Steven, agreed, maybe place the hand around the girl laying down in front of the hair. Okay. James is saying, did anyone mention the brightness of the bust off the lady laying down, there was a brightness of the bust. I didn't notice
Yeah,
that.
yeah. On my end, it doesn't really. I'm not seeing any brightness that caught my eye.
I'm guessing he's talking about maybe the young lady on the left-hand side. Let me switch here to my screen again. Switch. So I'm guessing he's referring to the young lady here on the left-hand side where maybe her, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really seeing any particular highlights per se on the left-hand side here. So, so James, if you want to elaborate on that, please do.
Oh, you know what, Ernesto, while you got that up, one
Hang
thing
on.
that I did want to mention
Go ahead.
is the watermark.
Oh,
And I have no problems with watermarks whatsoever. Use them if you want to use them. Don't if you don't. That's your choice. But I always would recommend you put the watermark somewhere that's not over the subject. So in this image, in the upper right-hand corner, there's tons of space right there where that watermark could have been placed right there, and then it would have achieved the same thing. But having it right on the subject where I'm looking, it's, that's just distracting, and it's just not necessary in this particular image. So I would always recommend, if you're going to have a watermark, place that watermark somewhere where it's not obtrusive.
agreed. I didn't want to talk about the watermark, but
Oh, well, sorry.
no, you're good.
It caught because it's pretty big, so it caught my eye. But sorry.
No, that's okay. It just opened up a whole can of worms
Right.
on that.
Yeah.
There's one of my the young lady that works with us that does like the hair and makeup, Andrea. She also does photography, and one of her image was stolen and stolen by somebody else and put it up on Instagram. And then, she mentioned that on Facebook, and then someone in the comments mentioned something, about putting watermarks on the images. And I'm like, I haven't used watermarks in years, and I don't think that will save your image from being stolen. I think, when people started doing watermarks is for, try to prevent theft and trying to market your image. It doesn't, for me, I think personally, it doesn't do any one of those. But like you said, if you want to use, your watermark, feel free to use it, and try to position it, like you said, in a place that's not so intrusive to the viewer, because you want people to concentrate on your image, not necessarily your watermark. But let's continue here. So let's look at the other comments. So that was one. Did anyone mention the brightness? Okay, we talked about that. And then James is saying, Anthony violating the ladies' moments. Wow. You're interrupting them. Anthony. And then Steven is laughing. Martin is laughing. Everybody's having a laugh at that one. So James, that's a good one. Steven, agree with the contrast boost. So Steven is agreeing with the boost. Jerome is saying, great job, guys. I will look to join the group. God bless. Thank you, Jerome. Martin Grisby says yes. I'm not sure what yes is to. James is saying, I shoot with them all. Nikon, Canon, and Sony. Oh, and Samsung. Yeah. So he's basically talking about his Canon comment. He's basically saying he's shoot with all. So yeah, shoot with whatever you want to shoot with. At James, I think A7R3 is my future. So Martin is saying he wants to get the A7 III. I guess it's A7R3. Is it A7R3, not A7 III? So James is saying, lady laying down on right side. So he was saying, on the right hand side, he's saying there's some highlights on the young lady that's lying down. I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either.
I guess maybe you could reduce the brightness a little bit on her blouse, I guess. But okay. And then Martin is saying, absolutely, Anthony, that watermark is crazy big. So Martin is agreeing with you. And then James is saying, at Martin Grisby, If I have the money, oh, he's talking to more, so I'll skip that. Um, Marco is saying, I hate watermarks and I used to never use it until recently when an image was stolen and used for commercial purposes. Now I just watermark, but in a way it's not so noticeable. So let me just elaborate a little bit more on this watermark thing, right? So I personally stopped using watermarks years ago for only one purpose, not for people stealing my images or anything like that. It was just too distracting for me. When I look at the images, it was just absolutely distracting. So I started doing some research on alternatives to watermarks, right? Because watermarks, I used it just primarily because that's what everybody else used to help, one, market their image and to try to prevent theft, right? So there's this great tool called Lightroom, and within Lightroom, you can embed copyright information in your images, so that when you put your images out on Facebook or the internet, wherever you put them on the web somewhere, that information goes with your image. So if somebody happened to steal your image for whatever reason, you can always make a claim against it because your information would be embedded in that file, right? So if you're trying to prevent theft, which is next to impossible when you have Photoshop, because you can easily go in Photoshop and I can easily remove this watermark that's on this young lady's arm and probably claim this image as my own. So I would say you're better off, if you want to use your watermark for marketing purposes, great. But I would say if you're trying to prevent theft of your image, embed your image with the copyright information. And if someone was to steal your image for whatever reason, you can always make a claim because your information will be embedded in the file. So that's what I would say with respect to your watermarks. So what do you think about that, Anthony?
I agree. I think people have to understand, in a digital world, the minute that you upload an image to Facebook, any social media, any website, it can be stolen. There's no way to prevent that. Watermarks don't do much to prevent theft. Like one of the commenters are saying, it's very easy to remove watermarks, especially these days with the tools that we have. I don't have a problem with it from a marketing perspective. I get that. I don't use watermarks really hardly ever. It's one of those things that the purpose that they used to have in 2017, I just don't think that it really fulfills that purpose. And I think a lot of people have a lot of false hope that a watermark is going to save them. If somebody wants to steal your image, they're going to steal your image. I mean, there was just a case where a guy, he was some sort of journalist guy, and he just got caught for taking a bunch of people's images. And what he did was he would take the image and then he would flip it horizontally. So if you ran it through an image search, it wouldn't come back. And so pretty much all of his images were images that he had stole from other people and just flipped them.
Wow.
And he was, basically selling them and pretending like it was all his work. So, I mean, if somebody wants to take your work, they're going to do it. And even if you can prove that they stole your work, I'm telling you, it could be quite an uphill battle to take legal action, and it likely would cost you a lot more money than what you would ever get. I mean, if you just sue an average Joe, sure, you could sue him. You could take him to court and you can sue him and you can even win a judgment. It doesn't mean you're going to get anything. And the amount of money that you spent to do that, is it really worth it? Sometimes it may be, but most times you just have to understand, if you're posting something, you just have to accept that it could be stolen. I know that sucks and it sounds like that's not the way to go, but the reality is legal stuff costs a lot of money. And unless your image is worth a lot of money or you got a lot of money to spend, most times it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of embarrass them on social media.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely,
So that's what I would do there. So Marco is saying, I hate watermarks and I used to, hang on, make sure I'm not missing any other comments. Okay. So Marco is saying, I hate watermarks and I used to never use it until recently when an image was stolen and used for commercial purposes. Now I just watermark, but in a way, it is not so noticeable. I got there's a guy by the name of Rico here in North Carolina. He does a great he does a great way of embedding his watermark within his image, where it's so, you know, you won't even notice it. It becomes like part of the environment, because I mean, he's really good with Photoshop. So he kind of like morphs it into, like, maybe put it on, like if you do like an environment portrait like on the streets or something, he would embed it like on a street pole or something like that. So, you know, he kind of gets, you know, really creative with it, and you could do that. That would be really cool. Like Where's Waldo, you know, like if somebody stole your image and they don't notice that there was a watermark in it because they're not looking really closely, that would be a cool way to do that. But obviously that takes time. Like if you have like 10 images and, you know, you want to put your watermark on all 10 or something like that, it would take time to do something like that. But that is a creative way to get around, you know, embedding watermarks into your images and making it look great. But as far as the issue with your, you know, the Chinese company that stole, I have no idea what to do there with respect to commercials. But I will try to embarrass them on social media if that was social media. I'll just do that. So James is saying, at the end of the day, I agree with Ernesto. Thanks, Anthony, for your input. I'm not really sure which one you agree with me on. We talked about a lot of stuff. Watermarks can be removed in less than a minute in most cases. Won't prevent theft. Totally agree, Stephen. Marco, in my case, my image was, I'm reading the same thing. He just put it twice.
See, you see what I got started with this watermark talk? I'm so sorry.
I told you to open up a can of worms.
Right.
With that one.
Every time. I knew it too. You knew it. We knew it. Sorry.
Says James is saying, y'all need to do this more often. Love the guests. Great show. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, Anthony is definitely great to have somebody else to talk to as opposed to just talking to yourself.
Right.
You know?
Right.
At Joe, I could not agree with you more. James is laughing with Marco. James is saying, join WPPI. Their membership includes some legal help. Cool. I didn't know that. I'm not a member of WPPI. Never went to WPPI. But, yeah. And what is it? The other photography membership, what is it called? Totally blanking on it right now. Anyways, there's other memberships out there where they provide not only legal help, but also insurance. I forget the other company. But yeah, that's it. All right, so to wrap up here, let's go to, speaking of social media. So you guys could follow Anthony on his Instagram here. It's called Photography by Antro. And Martin, no, actually we are not in the same room.
We're not.
I'm in North Carolina and Anthony's in Ohio. So we were completely opposites here.
Yep.
But it's cool with technology. It could look like we're in the same room. So it's cool. So go follow Anthony on his Instagram. It's called photography_by_Antro. So go hit him up on his social, and hit me up on my social as well. On my Instagram, it's called Joe Pulse. I know you guys are knocking my Joe Pulse. Don't knock my Joe Pulse. I like my Joe Pulse. So hit me up on Instagram. Join me there, and we'll keep the conversation going. I hope you guys enjoy this. We look forward to doing more. So like I said, we do this show every Monday live, and you know, we look forward to having you guys as our guest and, you know, having this great conversation. And please submit your images so that we can keep this Monday critique show going. Let me see here. Smile Anthony, want to know. James is saying, smile Anthony, I want to know you're reading my comments.
I'm definitely reading them. I'm looking right at them.
And James is saying he liked the banter. Yes, I love the banter too. I love talking to somebody. Martin wants to know what part of Ohio you in, Anthony.
Columbus, capital city.
Columbus, Ohio. So that's where he's at. From my understanding, it's pretty cold there right now. So
It is. It was definitely cold today. What's the temperature down in North Carolina right now?
I don't know. Let me just check my my phone here. Let's see. Yes, this is a question that constantly gets asked of me, but I never know. 72, 72 degrees right now.
Oh man, 72.
Is that
I'm jealous.
Is that short sweater?
It would be for me. It's 43 here right now.
Wow, what a difference.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, it was awesome, Anthony. We got to do this again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Is there anything else you want to tell the people that's watching right now?
Nah, I appreciate you guys tuning in and hanging out with us.
Absolutely. You know what? Actually, I was talking about and I didn't show it. I was talking about the social media, but I didn't show it, guys.
Oh, yep. Hit that.
So sorry. So here's the Instagram for Anthony. It's called photography_by_intro. So give Anthony a follow there on the social media world.
I'm gonna have to start posting more now, E.
Yeah, I'm gonna force it. I'm gonna force you to post.
I'm so terrible with it. I admit it. I do not post to social media anywhere near as often as I should, but I'm gonna try to do better.
Yeah, you gotta post. Now I'm gonna force you to post. Actually, I got a secret tip for you guys. Hopefully you guys don't know this, but I'll give you a secret tip in a minute. But first, follow me on Instagram. It's called Joe Pulse. Don't give me grief about the name. It's a great name. I love the name, Joe Pulse. All right, so here's a great tip. So I don't know how many of you guys know how to post from your desktop to Instagram, but there's this really cool tip that I discovered the other day within Chrome, right? So in Chrome, if you go to More Tools, right? And then you go to Developer Tools, okay? And then if you go to Developer Tools, you get all this cool code that, if you're interested in it, you could read it. I'm a geek, so I kind of like all this stuff. But if you're not interested, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to click any of that. All you have to do is click on this icon here called Toggle Device Toolbar. Click on that. What that does is basically it converts the web page that you're looking at into a mobile browser, kind of like your app on your phone. If you refresh the screen, so just hit refresh there. So now if you look at the bottom here, now you have the option of basically clicking on that, and now you could upload an image straight to Instagram. So like if I just click on this image here, like 47, so now I could actually resize the image like I would on my mobile phone, and then go to next and all that good stuff. I'm not going to post it, but go to next and all that good stuff, and you can actually post your images straight from your desktop.
So you just blew my mind, right?
I did. I thought you knew this.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I would probably post more if I could do it from my computer. I just hate. I'm lazy sometimes. So I just hate using my phone and like having to move the image from my computer to the phone. I'm just lazy. I'll admit it. I did not know that. You should do a video just on that, like just a quick 5-minute video, like really going in depth on that. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, I got frustrated. That's the reason. I didn't used to use Instagram at all. I really was really bad at using Instagram because I hated the fact that I had to go then upload the photo to my email or my storage or something, and then download it into my phone and then upload it. And then the other thing that annoyed me is all the hashtags, like the pound blah 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 that you have to put. I'm like, good grief! Like, how do you maintain all of that crap? So you just use this, copy paste, and you're good to go. So I just found that to be interesting. So if you guys stay tuned to the end of this show, you got to see that awesome tip. So All right, guys, if you enjoyed this video, man, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Put some comments down below after this video is no longer live. So, you know, tell us if you liked it or not. Share this video with your friends and family if you think it would be helpful to them. Please share it with them. And guys, if you got this far in this video and you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, what are you waiting for? Go ahead. And I realize I'm talking about all this and I'm not even on myself. But anyways, it's all good. I'll switch to myself now just to say a wonderful goodbye to you guys. So let me just do that really quick. There we go. All right. So, sorry. So yes, if you got this far in the video, hey, it's live. What can you do? You know, you get through all of this stuff. So if you got this far in this video and you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Later.